Hello and welcome to Strikes and Spares, a podcast hosted by me, Thomas Fisher, where we discuss one of the most popular recreational and sporting activities. Bowling! Today is Monday, June 7th, 2021. The time is 6 p.m. and I'm coming at you from our Davenport studio and I'm glad you've joined us. This evening we're going to cover a little bit about the history of bowling. We're also going to be talking about what it takes to get started in the sport, such as equipment needs and costs, as well as game fees. We'll even be speaking to an expert on the subject of bowling whose stats will amaze you. Our expert will go over some important points to improve your game, as well as tips and tricks to help you get the most out of the game of bowling, whether it be for fun or competition. I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's get rolling. To discover the origins of bowling, we have to go back in time. And I mean way back. According to bowlingmuseum.com, the ancient Egyptians were believed to have created the first game that we know as bowling anywhere from between 5000 to 3200 BC. In the 1930s, British anthropologist Sir Flinders Petrie discovered a collection of objects in a child's grave that appeared to him have been used in a crude form of bowling. Apparently, the Egyptians invented a game where they rolled stones at various objects with the goal of trying to knock them down. According to Case Western University, the first indoor bowling alley in the world was opened in the United States in 1840. It was located in New York City and was called Knickerbocker Alleys. Instead of wood, this alley used clay for its lanes. At one time, there were over 400 bowling alleys in New York, which earned it the title of Bowling Capital of North America. Today, the oldest sanctioned lanes are located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at a place called Holler House Tavern. Holler House Tavern has been open since 1904, and both of its lanes are still tended by human pin setters. Today's bowling lanes are 60 feet long and almost 42 inches wide between the gutters. They are constructed of wood.
Hey Thomas, time for the dad joke of the day.
Oh no.
Why'd the bowler have so many bowling balls?
I don't know. Why did the bowler have so many bowling balls?
So he'd always have one to spare.
As I was saying, lanes are constructed of wood and have oil laid in patterns to challenge bowlers. The PBA.com website says that these oil patterns are commonly referred to by animal names such as bear, cheetah, and wolf, probably to intimidate bowlers. In the end, you're trying to knock down pins with your equipment. Those pesky pins that never seem to fall? Well, they're actually 15 inches tall and weigh 3 pounds 8 ounces. No wonder they don't fall easily. Now that you know what you're up against, we need to fill you in on a little of what you need to be successful. According to bowlingforbeginners.com, the modern 8.5-inch diameter bowling ball was created by a now 98-year-old World War II veteran and GE engineer named Joseph Gentilumo. Bowling balls range in price anywhere from $50 for a plastic ball, all the way up to $300 for a high-performance ball. They also range in weight anywhere from 6 pounds to 16 pounds, depending greatly on personal preference and ability. A bag for bowling balls ranges from $25 all the way up to $300, depending on the number of balls it can carry, and options like heavy-duty wheels and the pocket for shoes. Shoes are another expense and are roughly the same cost as your average sneaker. With options, you can take them up to $300 as well. You can generally expect to pay $1 to $5 per game of bowling, although some alleys rent by the hour so you can get more for your money. Okay, so we've covered a little bit about the history of bowling and the equipment needed. Now let's talk to someone who can help us maximize our potential by giving us tips on the game of bowling. We are lucky enough to be joined by an expert bowler who has logged over 40 years of playing time and knows the game better than anyone I know. He has over 3,300 games, over 5 800 series, and bowls between 9 and 12 games a week, plus tournaments on the weekends. He has bowled in places all over the country, from Detroit to Las Vegas. He has also bowled in Minneapolis, where he won the amateur tournament, bringing in over $3,100 in weekend winnings. Let's give a warm welcome to someone I'm lucky enough to call friend and coach, Lonnie Boyd. How are you doing, Lonnie?
I'm doing great.
Great. I would like to ask you a couple of questions.
No problem.
So my cousins are all big baseball players and are always telling me that bowling isn't a sport, it's an activity. What's your opinion on that? Is bowling a sport? Why or why not?
Well, bowling is definitely a sport, and I'll just tell you that the key with any sport is that you have a target.
Right.
Baseball, you have a target.
Right.
Basketball, you have a target. Volleyball,
Right.
all those are targets. And that's what makes bowling just the same. You need the same physical aspect as basketball and baseball and all these different things you're using, mental things as well. So in essence, bowling is a sport.
Right.
And don't let nobody tell you anything different than that, Thomas.
All right. Thank you. I'll let my cousins know about that one. So I have another question for you. How did you get into bowling?
Well, I'll tell you a story, and it's really kind of remarkable. One day I didn't know the first thing about bowling, so I went to the bowling alley just clowning around. And I was throwing the ball, and the gentleman walked up behind me and said, "Boy, you do that pretty good." And he said, "How would you like to bowl with me in a league?" And I said, "I'm not that good." He said, No problem." So I met him later, and he gave me my first bowling shoes, my first bowling ball, and he gave me free lessons.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, after 2 years, I was averaging over 200 thanks to him.
That is a remarkable story. It's amazing how people can just help you, and now you're returning the favor to the younger generation.
Exactly. You got to give back. It was
Right.
given to me, and so I continue to give.
Right. Now, what advice could you give someone who is just starting out bowling?
I would give them advice like I would give anyone that was about life. If you start right, you'll end up right.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
So if you push away on your approach, you'll end up right.
Right.
So that's the key. I would say have a strong attitude,
Right.
stay focused.
Right.
Most of all, don't get discouraged.
I'm still working on that one to this day.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I'm still working on most of those, and I think I'm getting better every day.
Good.
Now, what lessons or skills in bowling do you feel can best be applied to your everyday life?
I just think that if you just remember to stay mentally focused and have a positive attitude
Right.
and learn to get together with other folks and enjoy life in bowling,
Right.
you will enjoy life in general.
That is great advice and great life lessons to learn.
Absolutely.
Now, what kind of equipment would the average bowler, and more specifically, what kind of bowling equipment do you have and why?
Oh, wow. There's a multitude of different pieces of gadgets that you can utilize in
Right.
bowling. First, most of all, your hand tends to swell. Everybody's a little different.
Yeah.
So you got to have the ability to have tape. And then
Yes.
they also have what they call a bowling file. It gives you ability to file down the thumb hole in case it gets a little tight. There is rags from wiping sweat off your hands. There is a ball cleaner that you keep in your bag to clean your ball, to keep the surface so that it will react the same every time. I can go on and on with a list of things. You don't want to hear about all of them.
It is a lot, and I know that they all have very important and very different roles.
Absolutely.
What are some of the main challenges that you could face in bowling?
You have multiple conditions that you have to shoot on.
Right.
So you have to be able to adjust left and right. You'll have to know what ball to use under certain conditions.
Right.
You'll have to learn to play straight, to learn how to hook the bowling ball. So those are the most things you go. And you have to be able to travel from different bowling alleys
Right.
and to see different conditions and all that.
Right.
That's probably your greatest challenge. But most of all, I think for me is maintaining a great disposition. As long as you keep a positive attitude, that you can overcome anything.
That is true. All right. So when you get up to bowl and it's your turn, what kind of routine do you have before either your game, your turn, or even before a tournament?
Most important thing before a tournament or before you even bowl, you have to do stretching.
Right.
You have to stretch your arms, your legs, your back, the whole bit.
Right.
You know, it's no different than any other sport. Like I was saying earlier, it's no different than football. It's no different than basketball. You
Right.
have to be limber and be willing to get down at the line and to not pull muscles. You know, if you're not careful, you will snap
Right.
something.
Yeah. I remember hitting my ankle once, and you gave me the advice to keep tying your shoe tighter so you can't feel it. And
Absolutely.
it goes away just fine. Okay, so that brings me to the end, and I have one last question for you. What important advice would you give to people just starting out in bowling, people who do it every day, or people who have been doing it for a long time? What's the most important advice?
Start right, you'll end up right. And that's the best tool and best advice I can give anyone.
Right.
Just remain positive every time. And most of all, don't be discouraged.
Right. I'm still working on that one too.
But I try to stay focused.
That's the most important thing. You have to stay focused.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for helping me out, Lonnie. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Glad to do it.
Coming out of that excellent chat with Lonnie, we have some time for our trivia question of the week, sponsored by Bowl.com. Winner will receive a gift card of undisclosed value to a restaurant of my choosing. So if you're ready, put on your thinking caps and here we go. How many people bowl annually in the United States? Is it A, 12 million, B, 25 million, C, 46 million, or D, 67 million? I'll give you a few minutes to think about it and come up with an answer, and then you... Oh, sorry, looks like we're out of time. The answer was 67 million people bowl annually, but it looks like that McDonald's gift card is going to roll over for another week, increasing its value to $3. But anyways, I'd like to thank my sponsors, Bowl.com, Google.com, and Davenport's own Leisure Lanes. I'd also like to thank my guest, Lonnie Boyd, but most of all, I'd like to thank you for listening. Because without you, I wouldn't have to, get to, do this podcast. As we roll out, let's listen to some more smooth jazz from the group Podcast Rubric. This one is called Jazz Up Your Podcast, off of their latest album, Just Trying to Score Some Points. I'm Thomas, thanks for listening, and see you next time on Strikes and Spares.